I'm a healthcare guy. Do everything from manage a venture capital fund called HKX Capital, where we invest into absolutely cutting edge healthcare technologies. And then Pete and I have known each other for a very long time. I've really been collaborating around the latest venture, which is called Vantage, which is a government-backed clinical trial company where we are able to run clinical trials 2 to 3 times faster and for about 10 to 20% of the price. So Western markets with a really strong track record of the data being accepted by international regulatory bodies. So as you can imagine, creating a vehicle that can manage both Central Asia regions when it comes to banking, when it comes to insurance, when it comes to us building commercial models that can satisfy the US, European markets, and having a very internationally diverse team from the US all the way through to obviously me in the UAE and Central Asia, and how we can able to think about optimizing tax across the team and structure things in a way that can satisfy both private biotech companies and publicly listed companies across the board.
How long have you been in the UAE now?
I'm heading into year 4 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, four. And what made you establish? Because I know you have another vehicle as well for yourself, and
Mm.
then other stuff that you've been doing here. So, what made you establish in the UAE?
Originally, I set up a personal vehicle, mostly from a lifestyle perspective. My girlfriend, now wife, and I wanted to come over here. We were pretty keen to get out of the UK during COVID, find a sunshine, better lifestyle, all that good stuff. And then my experience of setting up that first vehicle and the ongoing service that I had with this outfit, I was very clear. And actually, what I was looking for when we were set to launch this pretty substantial vehicle that we've launched with GCG Capital, and Pete was able to satisfy each of those needs in a very professional and polished way.
And what was the difference? So, you have a current CRO that works on your
Mm.
existing company.
Yeah.
And how would you say that what we do in structuring and what they do in their outfit, how does that compare to you? Like, what do you feel?
Yeah, look, I really do think it's night and day, right? When I first came here, I was looking for cheap and cheerful. They satisfied the real basics. Consistently, actually, with that experience, additional costs would creep into every conversation, which was particularly annoying. So, you'd get a quote for X, and then all of a sudden there'd be another 2,000, 3,000 dirhams that was needed, which, when it happens once, it's okay. But when that happens 4 or 5 times is annoying. What we were looking for in this scenario was not just an outfit that could help us launch a vehicle and a bank account or two. It was, how do we have an established partner that understands some of the challenges that we're going to anticipate, right? If we're banking with certain countries in the CIS region, which banking partners are most suitable for us to have a frictionless experience when moving serious amounts of capital, right? In the clinical trial games, these clinical trials could be 1, 2, 3 million dollars a pop. When you're moving that kind of money, having blockages in those processes is a problem. So being able to anticipate what challenges we might overcome and which partners actually could make the most sense was critical. From understanding which free zone was most appropriate and which licenses would best suit the real granular detail of what we're doing was really important. And Pete was critical in helping us understand which options would make the most sense. And then, as I touched on, we've got partners in New York, we've got partners in 2 or 3 different countries across the CIS. So, understanding at a broader picture how we can start to consider optimizing scenarios um, for those who are not as fortunate as myself to live in the UAE where there's no personal
Mhm.
tax, and build out a picture where everyone felt comfortable moving forwards.
So, would you say GC structuring was able to assist you in setting up, doing the bank part, but also be there and cater to the needs on the legal side specifically because it is a sort of a medical thing what you're doing.
Mm,
Healthcare is kind of tricky. There's a lot of potential licensing and regulation to, I don't want to say avoid, but to optimize on where you need to be regulated. There's some places where you
mm.
don't. So would you say that we navigated that correctly and are still, I think, navigating that with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's healthcare is complicated, right? You've got healthcare data considerations that need to be taken into
Sure.
account. You've got what level of exposure you're going to have to the UAE law against international law. You've got publicly listed companies that we're working with that have their own agenda and their own areas of priority, like insurance, for example. So, one of our clients required for us to have a certain level of general liability insurance, and Pete putting us in contact with the right folks who could understand actually how to bridge quite a complicated dynamic around having a Dubai-based vehicle, but the trials themselves happening in a different country, and then having a Nasdaq-listed company having their own level of scrutiny around the thinking that we were putting into the contracting, and that level of support across the board was sophisticated. It was polished. It helped protect us here in the UAE, and also gave us the flexibility to operate in international markets.
Has there been any unexpected positives working with GC structuring?
The breadth of expertise in-house, actually, I was not expecting. So being able to tap into some legal support, being able to tap into like really frictionless banking, which is not it's not a given actually in the UAE, right? It can take a long time for companies to get a bank account open. So being able to have things move fast, we were on an accelerated timeline when we decided to pull the trigger on the vehicle. So the tempo internally was another really positive piece. And then it sets the foundation for a long-term relationship, right? I think it's one thing to be able to launch a vehicle, it's another thing to be able to grow a business with a partner. And the whole experience that we've had with GCG so far is very much that we plan to build this business together.
From a personal perspective, Charlie, if somebody was to set up a company in the UAE, what would you tell them to be aware of? Maybe any tips, anything personal that you've learned in your journey, multiple journeys with us, or with yourself specifically?
Yeah.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend going for a partner that understands specifically what you're trying to do over the next 5 years, right? There's a number of outfits that can try and help you get a little vehicle up and running in whichever emirate that makes sense. But if they truly understand the strategy of the company, where you're trying to take it in the next 12 months and all the way through to a 5-year window, I think that's the key to being able to have a path forwards for growth without any surprises, right? You don't want to be finding yourself in a situation where you don't have the correct license to do what you need to do in 12 months time or whatever it might be. Like setting really strong foundations, if you do have a growth mindset, is really critical, and that requires sophisticated operators, not just folks that run you through a pretty basic cycle.
Thank you very much for your
Good to
time. I
see you, dude.
appreciate it. Yeah, good
Anytime.
to see you too.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Likewise.